Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood, and I'm joined again this week by Disc Golf Hall of Famer Jay Redding. Jay, how are you?
Doing great, Charlie. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Texas, man. We got all the top players showing up in Tyler. We're ready to have a PDGA National Tour debut for 2021 this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like 18 months or something since we had one. We didn't get any National Tour events in 2020 because of COVID. We're going to talk more about that later in the show, and the PDGA Director of Operations, Mike Downs, will be joining us as well to talk about the return of the tour and the future of the National Tour as well. I played my first spring disc golf this weekend, Jay. I went to the Rolling Knolls disc golf course outside of Chicago, designed by my commentary partner, Dana Vici. So nice to get into. It was beautiful in Chicago this weekend as I ended up heading up to Milwaukee to broadcast the Open at Belton, a Silver Series event on the Disc Golf Network. But nice to knock the rust off. It's so much more enjoyable to play disc golf when you're not tromping through 8 inches of snow, which is what I did the last time I played.
Oh man, I know all too well growing up in Iowa, and we loved it. We loved it for the most part, but I got to admit, now that I've been down in Texas, and these folks just don't even understand what something like that was like. But there's no going back for sure. And hey, you guys did a super job. People should check that out. You and Dana had a nice chemistry, and well-spoken, all those things. You made the broadcast another level of compellingness, adding your commentary. So compliments.
Appreciate it. It's fun to sit down and give it a shot. It's a long day to be up there, especially with the backups. But we couldn't have been treated to more exciting disc golf, which we'll talk about.
Man,
what happened. I mean, it may have been a Silver Series event, but it didn't feel like anything less important than your top tier Elite Series events. I know that you got a little disc golf in this weekend as well. What'd you get up to this weekend?
Yeah. The Texas Swing is four big events, and somewhere in there we do need some time to kind of collect and get ready for maybe more of a tour. Going to hopefully venture out of the state of Texas this year, and so. Of course, duty calls. The ACDC, the Alamo Community Disc Golf Club in San Antonio, has a traditional event that they always want to run right around the daylight savings time. There's a disc golf course there called Brian McLean. It's a fun, super recreational, fun, woody course. And for about 4 or 5 months out of the year, they actually have put in new collars where they play the course in reverse, no tee pads compared to the other course. And, some people love the reverse, some people hate the reverse, but needless to say, by this time of the year, people are chomping to get back to the tee signs, the tee pads, all those things. And so they flip it. And they just were struggling coming up with, a little bit of merchandise for the amateur players packages. And then, somebody, a couple of their regular tournament guys were pretty booked up for the month. And I answered the call. I came down and I ran a Twirl Yeti Productions, sold out right away, 72 players, had some nice Innova Champion players packages for everybody. We did just trophy only, true amateur event. And, the funny thing was some of the trophies were already customized for an event that Des and I normally run up at a course I designed in Fort Worth at a community college, Tarrant County Community College. And so they were, they already knew that some of the merch and stuff is going to have the items from a tournament that never was, but 2020, call it 2020 COVID memorabilia, I guess, at this point. But
the way disc golf's going, it's going to sell for triple on eBay. So
yeah, there you go for sure. So, when it came down to it, I got on all the players off the wait list, and there was still a spot for me. So with Kevin Folman gets the shout out for watching the booth. He's a big member of the club, and yeah, I got to play, no warm up and stuff. And I went out, played the reverse course, had never seen it before. I ended up with a 1-stroke lead out of 15 in open. And then, second round, way more stuff going on tournament wise, but we got everybody started and I ran over and started hole 1. And after a couple holes of slow start, I caught my groove. And the next thing you know, my card mates were all like, I can't believe you're doing this. You just ran the tournament and you've got 5 birdies in a row. And I ended up winning by 9.
Wow.
So, hey, all good. And, a bonus on top, the club wanted to make sure like, hey, let's do something for Edge. And the park sits right bordering a school that Edge actually gave awarded an Edge package to as part of our grant program with the tournament charity program. We raised $1,300 that's going to go to a new campus course right there in San Antonio. So a weekend that just knocked it out of the park. I guess I could have been cleaning and pulling weeds and mowing and all that stuff, but disc golf.
Run a tournament, win a tournament, raise money for Edge. It sounds like you can't really draw it up any better than that.
It was a good weekend.
So we also over the weekend had the first couple of rounds of March Madness. It's now whittled down to 16 teams left. My bracket is a total dumpster fire, but I feel like I picked a lot of upsets knowing that it was going to be a strange year, but I just didn't pick the right ones. But it's been a really exciting Oral Roberts, just Osmus, just crushing threes. Like there's nothing like college basketball tournament, and it's been a lot of fun. Have you had a chance? I don't know if you've had a chance to even watch any games because you've been doing all the disc golf, but what you thinking? How's your bracket look?
The NCAA March Madness is the epitome of college athleticness that everybody can get behind, right? Where even if you don't follow basketball, you're probably filled out a bracket based on cool mascots names. I mean, Des tends to pick several teams like, oh, let's see, Texas Tech. Oh, my good friend Mel was a alumni from there. Yay. And stuff
just
like
as
that.
Good as anything else.
I'm telling you, and now that all these upsets have happened, I mean, I had my share as well. I mean, I had to go with Sister Jean, right, with Loyola, plus out of the Missouri Valley, like my UNI Panthers. And, yep, they're still rocking in there. And, of course, this is where my tragic comes in. As one of the state schools in Iowa, the Iowa State Cyclones, the Iowa Hawkeyes, which, if you're a Panther, they're known as the Squawk Guys and the Clowns, the Cyclowns. But hey, I was all about Iowa this year. Luca Garza, historical player for the state of Iowa. They're going to retire his jersey already. Number 55. He's the all-time now scoring leader for the state as far as the Iowa Hawkeyes go. So I really thought, like, dude, this guy has it. There hasn't been a player since Michael Jordan that Sporting News back-to-back, Player of the Year, which says something about. Yeah, it says something about this 6'8" monster that can also, is 40% out at 3-pointers. I mean, just a well-rounded individual. And unfortunately, I had them beating undefeated Gonzaga and going far. So of course they were busted my bracket big time.
Pac-12, Oregon and the Pac-12. Wow. I mean, they have been so good. I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, it was a weird year in college basketball because there was not a lot of out-of-conference play, but Big Ten not looking so hot, and the Pac-12 on the come-up with almost all of their teams making the Sweet 16. Colorado ended up losing in the round of 32, but
yeah, I still have Baylor in there, so I've got an outside chance. Currently, Des and I have we do the bracket battle every year, and by our scoring system, I am currently up 45 to Des's 44.
Oh wow!
But
wow!
I also have to point. Yeah, I also have to point out we took the kayaks out here in Tyler, and she has 3 bass to my 0 as of last night.
Who do you have winning it all?
Well, I guess this is where I'm embarrassed, and I'll sing the UNI fight song because the Hawkeyes let me down. Hail our Panthers, we are ever loyal. Okay.
I have Gonzaga, so I feel like I just took the chalk, but they're really
and Des. So. Yeah, and Des. Des has them as well. I mean, how cool would an undefeated season be?
It would be very cool, but we've seen undefeated seasons go up in smoke in the Final Four in the past. So
Sure have.
We'll see what happens. What continues this weekend, and of course, coming up this weekend in disc golf, we've got the Texas State Disc Golf Championships, the first of 6 National Tour events. It's the PDGA National Tour on hiatus in 2020, coming back. Coming up after Texas State's on the National Tour, you've got the Dynamic Discs Open, formerly the Glassblown Open, Masters Cup, Beaver State Fling, Classic West Coast Tournaments, the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, and Nashville's Music City Open. So we'll talk a little bit more about the National Tour in a little bit. This past weekend, Open at Belton. All right, first Silver Series event on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So a chance for some regional players to get out there, compete against some of the top players on tour. But in a way, there wasn't all that much competition with the top players on tour, as we watched in the MPO, Ricky Wysocki and Paul McBeth just pull away from everybody. I mean, it was basically a 2-horse race after the second round, and they put together a final round back and forth that was as good as we've seen from the two of them. Ricky Wysocki ends up coming out on top, wins by 2 strokes over McBeth, shooting a course record tying 16 under par. Could have been 17 down if he didn't lay up on 18 to set the course record. And from holes 8 to 17, he got birdie or better, including 2 eagles, missed 1 putt the whole round from circle 1 and 1 from circle 2. So just a remarkable level of play from Ricky Wysocki. I feel confident. I mean, he loves to say it. He comes on the interview after the round. Saki Bomb is back. He is back. That is true. Saki Bomb is 100% back. This looks like the Ricky that we have seen in the past at the top of his game when he won world championships. The Lyme disease, it seems like it's behind him, and he went out and battled with McBeth, who, by the way, played quite well, and yet Wysocki's still better.
Wow. Belton Open, the course itself is one of the ones that I think all of these top echelon guys dream about. Neil Dombra, PDGA number 200. So one of Texas's longtime legends, course designer. He still plays. This is one of his palettes that he was able to do the Neil thing. And the players responded well. For personally, for me, this is one of those courses like if you don't have a 450-foot, hyzer minimum, this might not be a tournament for you. But if you have those skills, you can put them to use. And of course, it's always a drive for show, putt for dough, which I think is what you're speaking about with Ricky's big putting sequences there. For me, I think the course is set hole 8 and 9 to me are the signature holes, and they kind of played out that way, especially down the stretch. I think Paul had a 2-stroke lead going into 7, and he bangs that at circle's edge putt, and the wind is going. Ricky, like, okay, I'll keep it at 2, 15-footer should be routine, doinks it off the cage. So then
Shocking
we see
Ricky.
Right? Absolutely. I think everybody was like, whoa, okay. Well, Paul looked so incredible on film in round 1. How could this guy be beat? Meanwhile, that's what the live coverage showed. So that's what the majority of the folks kind of like put in their own heads. Meanwhile, Calvin Heimberg's playing consistent. Ricky Wysocki's playing super consistent. Neither Paul or Ricky had a bogey the entire weekend. So when it comes down to 8 and 9, if we think back to that first round that Paul had, 8 is that's the hole that's 488 feet. It's got the Leon beautiful river on the right side. It's got a sidewalk OB on the left side. It's very beautifully shaped for a right to left, downhill kind of a shot. Players that want to score an eagle opportunity, right? And these guys can all throw that far on a 500-foot hyzer. You've got to risk it out over the water. And Paul McBeth did just that. And that was one of my keys thinking about that hole. If the disc flipped out or you took it too wide, and like Paul did, and he was out of bounds. And so, he made a recovery from there. But that was a big thing, I think, that came back maybe in his head. I'll give him credit. He stuck to the game plan. He threw the same shot in round 3, and he put himself in perfect position for about a 60-foot putt, I think, for the eagle. Meanwhile, Ricky throws the stall out high hyzer, boom, puts it right there. And when Paul misses his, Ricky's like, this is where I got the momentum switch back, and he pounds the eagle there. And then we go over to, hole 9, which is 397, beautiful pecan rose, and this one finishes left to right, and the basket's up on the little hillside there, right? So Ricky tees off. He does his Ricky thing, which is the fantastic forehand, one of the best in the game in the history, lays it right up underneath the pin. The slope of the hill rolls the disc back, and it lands about 25 feet, I think 22 feet, probably closer. Then Paul McBeth steps up and throws the same exact shot. And if we go back just a handful of years, Paul McBeth did not have an incredible forehand, one that we would be talking about. But that's the athlete that Paul McBeth is. Ricky Wysocki and him were battling it out back then, and he knew this is a weak part in my game. Thank you, Ricky. You just motivated me to learn this forehand. And he's done it to the point where now he can pull off the same exact 400-foot laser rope forehand, and he did it. And he also got that little slope play off of the hill, and his disc actually, remember that? It rolled outside of Ricky's. So when Paul misses his and Ricky makes his, boom, there's those 2 strokes right back, and we've got a ball game, folks.
Yes, we sure did. I mean, and it's crazy because when Wysocki missed the putt on 7, it was like, like that might do it, because that's just number one. It's not a putt that Ricky ever misses, and to now fall 3 strokes behind McBeth with only 12 holes to play, or 11 holes to play. That's not a good situation to be in. But then he really turned it on. And from that point forward, he never missed a putt. He had some big putt. I mean, he had some really long putts to have to make. He made a huge 50-footer up the hill on the hole with the basket. After the long field shot, basket up the slope into the woods, and he hits a massive putt there to make the birdie. McBeth misses there, and I think that's when it got tied up. He was clinical. He was clinical.
I felt remnants of 2011, of the big pro world championships with Ricky and Paul doing their thing back and forth, just trading athletic vibes.
Yeah. McBeth missed 3 circle 1 putts in the back 9. And I mean, ultimately, when you look at the scorecard, that's what really you come away thinking, well, that's why he didn't win. Because Ricky couldn't miss anything. And now here's what's amazing. You talk about the forehand for McBeth. On 18, he ended up going out of bounds. But he drove the green on 18 with a forehand, 466 feet to the pin. Very difficult hole for anybody to birdie. I mean, we're talking about Garrett Gerthy, Calvin Heimberg, a couple other people, Austin Hannum, big power, able to get a birdie on that. But I think pretty much all of those guys were throwing backhand. Big hyzer.
Mm-hmm.
And McBeth throws forehand, gets it to the green, and it does trickle out of bounds. He really had no choice. He was down 2 strokes, so he had to go for it. But wow, I don't think I quite realized how much power he had in that forehand. I mean, it's one thing to go, on the 397-foot ninth that you were talking about, but 466, amazing shot from McBeth to even have a chance of getting it up there for a putt. Goes OB, but he probably wasn't going to have a chance to win anyway unless Wysocki made a big mistake. But very exciting.
Yeah. Yep. Had that gone in bounds, that potentially had a little bit more pressure than on everything from there on out from Ricky. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Calvin Heimberg, still played well. He was 9 under, a little up and down. He had a huge 60-foot putt go in on hole 9, the pecan tree hole. Awesome. Maybe the shot of the day.
That's right. Yeah.
and big flex putt underneath the branch. And, lots of other cool storylines, Terry Roethlisberger, Nathan Queen, Joel Freeman, Casey White, Gavin Rathbun, all up inside of the top 10. But nobody could sniff Paul and Ricky on this weekend.
Yeah, it was their weekend, no doubt about it, and that was that style of play where, I think those two once they kind of locked horns, it was like, okay, I really don't think anything that anybody else in the rest of the field, even though some of those guys were, throwing some incredible shots. Nah.
Yeah. It's a consistency. Over in FPO, Katrina Allen gets the win. She wins by 1 stroke over Heather Young, who had a fantastic final round, went 5 under, and kept the pressure on Allen throughout the back 9. I now I can't remember. I think she did take the lead at one point. She was ahead, and had a chance to win on 18, or at least force a playoff. But maybe the nerves getting to her in that moment. That left, she's lefty, so she has to hang it out over the OB left in order to kind of maximize the distance. Sawed it off a little bit on 18, leaving her with a really long upshot. Got it up to circle 2, but had a very long putt. Didn't make it. Katrina Allen able to play it for par and take down the win. A nice performance from Allen, particularly in round 2, and she was fantastic. A little more up and down on the final day, but still able to hit some really clutch shots, clutch putts down the stretch of the back 9 in order to hold off Heather Young.
Yeah, this also became a 2-horse race, right? And who became a better player for the remainder of their career? Heather Young. And I know I wore the purple for the Panthers here, but Heather, also a nod to you. And if we look at, because it was this, 2-woman race down the back stretch here, Katrina Allen, I think, played her game, right? She just don't make mistakes, get them where you can. And Heather was like, okay, it looks like there's nobody pushing me behind. I got to put some pedal to the metal here. She ended up with 7 birdies that round to Katrina's 2. So, she did what she needed to do. Katrina, the veteran, consistency. I tell you what, when Katrina's putt is hitting its pace, she off the tee, I think her accuracy is above Paige Pierce's, who's got the power nod. So cool to see different women up at the top, and I hope that trend continues. There's some great play from the FPO field, though, overall, even though there was really only 2 that rose to the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see, too, the contrast in styles between Katrina Allen and Heather Young. Heather Young, not nearly the distance off the tee that Allen has, but certainly a better putter. I mean, she was fantastic, made all of her Circle 1 putts in the final round, and she had a lot of long, 16, 20, 25-foot putts. And really, it really did feel like it just kind of, the pressure on 18, maybe just a little too much. And Jay, I kind of wonder, do you remember back to a time earlier in your career when you were facing a big pressure shot late in a round and you made a mistake? Maybe that's too long ago for you to remember, but those things can tend to stick with you. Was there a time when you were like, damn, I let that moment get a little too big for me, and then we're able to use that to be better in the future?
Great question, Charlie. And then it is funny because, yep, some of those learning moments are so far back that as an athlete, I've forgotten those. I can tell you about 12 stories right now about where I rose to the occasion and I clutch balled the last throw or putt. But I think that is part of the growing process of a young player, is to make sure you learn from that scenario. And where you cannot learn from that unless you're in it. So every
Right.
time that you're in that scenario and you can take something away, pretty soon those become the clutch moments that you capitalize on that make people talk about you as the player of the day, of the moment, of the time. So I think Heather, same thing. Des and I were watching intently on that one, and for lack of really having a dog in the hunt, we wanted to see a playoff, of course, right?
Of course.
And in Heather's tee shot, it just was absolutely what you're describing. Man, just couldn't quite pull it off the way she wanted to make sure that she was in position to try to really crank up that pressure on Katrina, which we know Katrina, has been on the wrong end of that pressure situations when it comes down the stretch.
It's true.
So, yep, all the pressure just released off of Katrina, and she did her thing. And Heather's going to become, again, she became a better player as of the Belton Open. So keep building on that momentum.
Elsewhere inside of your top five, Missy Gannon, Lisa Fakis, who's been playing very well to start the season. Don't overlook that. Valerie Mandujano, Kona Panis, those latter three all tied for fourth place. So exciting weekend. We get ready to head to the Texas State Championships just down the road. And we are going to talk more about that in a little bit. But first, Mike Downs from the PDGA joins us to talk about the National Tour. And we'll look forward to talking to him right now. So stay with us. It's The Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Set your calendar. April 1st, 12 p.m. Pacific. That's next Thursday. Custom programs reopening. And remember, they've got twice as many spots open as before, but their last release still sold out in under 24 hours. So you got to be ready to go. So set your alarm, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, April 1st. Get yourself a custom Octothorpe, a custom Carlton, whatever you're looking for today. Visit pounddiscgolf.com for more information. Joining us now on the Upshot is the Director of Operations for the Professional Disc Golf Association, Mike Downs. Mike's been at the PDGA for about 8 years at this point. Mike, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us. It's great to be here.
So before we talk about Texas States and return of the NT, I want to kick it over to Jay because I know the two of you have some musical connection, and our sound, our music on today's show has a connection that we didn't even anticipate until we sat down to do this recording.
Yeah, super cool. Michael and I actually go way back. In 2003, Michael was one of the best professional disc golfers in the Southwest region and out of Arizona. So he was in his homeland because the World Championships were in Flagstaff. And Michael and I were lucky enough. We actually played on the same card for several rounds, and we got to know each other. And we really built a friendship that has lasted both of our, longevity and careers here into disc golf and continues today. And one of the great things about just disc golf in general and getting to know new people. So we have that connection, and we're both big music lovers. So we tend to exchange new ideas and new bands to each other. And at the Hall of Fame Classic, just a couple years ago, Michael's like, "Oh, I got a great band for you." And they're called Khruangbin. And I'm kind of like, Khruangbin, how do you spell that? He's like, well, I'm going to have to text it to you because it maybe doesn't sound as what it reads. And they're out of Texas. And so, I checked them out. And of course, like, whoa, just next level stuff. I mean, these guys really have only been around for a few years. And it's Khruangbin, Khrua Krungbin, easy for me to say, right? Krungbin is actually a Thai word that means aeroplane. And so a lot of their music is a soul, dub, surf, psych, chill. I mean, they're really hard to categorize because they're so unique, yet they tap into so many different things. So yeah, over my shoulder here, I'm kind of representing the last EP that they did, Texas Sun. I mean, how appropriate. It's actually 4 songs. It's all done with Leon Bridges, which, if you don't know that soul singer, woo, next level good stuff. And Michael, it looks like you've actually got some Krungbin merchandise back there on the door.
Much thanks to you and Des, my friend. I got married last September, and just a few days before the wedding, one of the most unbelievable gifts we received throughout the whole entire experience was Krungbin's most recent album, which came with a nice little patch and a carry bag behind me from our good friends Jay and Des Redding. So thanks again for the wedding gift. It's been on the turntable pretty much ever since.
and congratulations on your continuous matrimonial celebration here ongoing.
Indeed.
Yeah, their latest album is called Mordecai. Just phenomenal as far as the music goes, and they do all their recordings in a small little town of 300 outside of Houston, and they've all been recorded in a barn. It's a 3-piece, super surf guitar, incredible female bassist, and then a tight, drum kit there. So that's Krungbin.
So, absolutely love it. Texas music continues here on our Texas Swing, and we're getting ready for the Texas State Championships coming up this weekend. And Mike, this is the return of the PDGA National Tour, which unfortunately we didn't get to have any of it last year because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. So a return to what has been the defining feature of kind of the elite side of disc golf since 2003. How are you feeling? And how is the PDGA feeling about having the NT coming back this year?
We could not be more excited. I mean, I think we share in the excitement with the players and really the staffs that we are working with. Texas State's Disc Golf Championships has been around for a long, long time. And so its place on the national tour is very rightfully deserved. And the team out there has put together an amazing week of activities, despite there not being any spectators or caddies out there this week. They still are making sure that the competitors have a fantastic time and do so in a safe environment. So we are thrilled. Actually, just over here behind my shoulder, my bags are packed. I am hopping on an airplane a little later this afternoon, and I'll be in Texas later on this evening. But several of our team members are already out there, as well as those of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, who will be helping us out with live coverage this week through the Disc Golf Network. So we couldn't be more thrilled, and we're very, very excited and honored to be kicking off the tour this year at the Texas State Disc Golf Championships.
Having the PDGA National Tour come to Texas is always something that everybody looks forward to. Texas is a wide-ranging state, so we're known for our large, wide-open, booming courses, and we got to see a good mix of that in Waco. We got to see the booming open side of that in Belton. And now we're going to be introduced to Texas Wood Golf. The Dogwood course, not exactly remembering when that first went in the ground, but it was a, kind of a ground shaking install because it was in the deep piney woods of East Texas. Lindsay Park is a super cool municipality park anyway, and they were already very inept with disc golf and had 2 courses already in the public outside area around the softball diamonds, parking lots and things. And then to be allowed to be given this huge chunk of land in the woods and carve what at the time was for Texas a North Carolina style Tennessee wooded course, it really blew people's minds. And anybody that designs a wooded course knows you have to plan for the future, because if you put wide open fairways to begin with, those wide open fairways become even wider, right? So the name of this game when it started was super tight and strict lanes, which now years and years later have opened up to be very fair corridors and a real shot maker's course. That is the Dogwood Gold.
So Mike, when Texas State's got picked, and I know this really happened well over a year ago at this point, because everything was rolled forward from 2020 into 2021 on the national tour. What made the PDGA decide, yes, we're going to put the first stop of the year at Texas State's?
Well, there's a number of things. Really, its geographic location obviously was ideal for us. Starting the tour in the kind of the southwest and moving towards Texas into Kansas as we get closer towards the DDO. Geographically, it seemed to make sense, but really it was the strength of the tournament team. The course, as Jay just laid out, the course has been steadily improving throughout the years, and I don't want to use the word improving, I guess steadily being more broken in throughout the years, and it does provide a suitable, fair challenge for the national tour. Not only that, I mentioned the tour team or the staff that is helping to run the event. Stephen Story, the tournament director, actually won the PDGA Tournament Director of the Year a couple of years ago. The course director for the Dogwood is Doug Bjerkes, who runs the Dynamic Disc Open and has also won the honors of the PDGA Tournament Director of the Year. So we feel very lucky, very fortunate to be working with literally a rock star cast who will be out there operating, functioning the tournament throughout this weekend. So really, when it came down to it, when Texas State and the team put forth the bid to be a national tour event, hopefully in 2019, the decision was pretty easy for us to make. We had an open spot on the tour, and it, again, geographically made sense. And given that the course and the facility and the history of the Texas State Disc Golf Championships, it was a no-brainer for us.
I think this is really one of those things that, the entire PDGA National Tour shows that it's really clicking on all the cylinders here, because you've got the national world organization coming in to lend its support that it does. It's got the super experienced tournament staff, but then it's got the foundation of the Rose City Disc Golf Club, and it's the local club that does all the work for 360 days of the year, and then allows the Steve-O's to come in and do what they're great at. And then the PDGA coming in under the umbrella and making it a world celebration, because we have the most video crews of any tournament. I don't think it's a record, but all of them are here. There's going to be more coverage than people know what to do with. And these things are going worldwide. And that's why the entire world is on Tyler, Texas and Dogwood this weekend. Pretty cool.
So the tournament kicking off this weekend, I mean, we've got, as Jay just mentioned, you've got coverage of MPO lead, MPO chase, MPO third card, FPO lead, and then also live coverage from the Disc Golf Network. The media rollout is pretty significant here, even going above and beyond what you see at Disc Golf Pro Tour events. What else can we expect on the media side? Are we going to see stuff coming out of the PDGA as well as we've seen in years past?
Yeah, we absolutely will. We'll have two media guys on site this week, actually. Matthew Rothstein and Hayden Henry, our media coordinators, will be out there. So you can expect a ton on the socials. We actually did just add coverage, post-produced coverage of the second FPO card as well. So we'll have another post-produced video for everybody to enjoy throughout the week. So yeah, really, if you want to soak it all in and find kind of a one-stop shop for how to follow all the action throughout this week, we just published an article on the PDGA website called How to Follow Texas States, and it does list all the many ways that you'll be able to keep up with the action throughout the week, including social media, post-production links, the link to the live coverage, and everything beyond that. So yeah, we're expecting huge things out of media this week, not just on behalf of the PDGA, but everybody involved, and we're super thankful for our media partners for coming on out and helping us share this great event with the rest of the world, as Jay was saying.
The Pro Tour has been the locus of professional disc golf for the last 12 months. because, well, there were no NTs. We had just the two majors last year, one for MPO and one for FPO. No Worlds. It's been a long hiatus for top tier PDGA sort of run events. From your perspective, Mike, have things changed fundamentally about the way that we're going to see professional disc golf kind of followed in the future? We could talk specifically about the NT in a second, but just generally, have things changed forever because of what we've seen over this last 12 months?
I don't think there's any doubt. It's really interesting what effect the pandemic had on the industry of disc golf. I mean, obviously, we're so thrilled that we've been able to continue to get out and play disc golf, even throughout the middle of the pandemic. But what we've seen all across the board, manufacturers from the PDGA, membership, events, really everything, all the way across the board throughout the industry, is the fast forward button seems to have been pressed. What the pandemic did and bringing in so many new players and introducing the sport to so many new people, we kind of feel like we're about 3 or 5 years ahead of where we were going to be, kind of on our projected path. And so it's fantastic. It's a great problem to have for everybody. And so the PDGA has done quite a significant amount of bolstering our staff to make sure that we're ready for this growth. So many thanks to our leader, our executive director, Joe Chargaloff, for having the foresight for building out our staff and creating kind of supplemental positions that will help to kind of backfill the whole entire organization. I bring that up because, I myself was the events manager for about 5 or 6 years, all by myself. And it was tough to travel to these events 150 days out of the year with another media manager. But now we've got 2 other events coordinators with Sean Sinclair and Todd Lyon. I mentioned our strong media team with Matthew and Hayden on board as well. So what that's done is it's strengthened our organization, and our support of these events gives us a little bit more of a direct tie-in and a closer relationship with the events and the event hosts themselves. So when we get to events, we are just thrilled to be able to be in this position again. I mean, it was unfortunate we had to cancel the national tour last year. We felt it was the safest thing for all parties involved. But what the Disc Golf Pro Tour did in the meantime was prove to everybody, not just the PDGA and our organization internally, but really to everyone that disc golf can be played safely. We can still maintain social distancing and make sure that our hygiene is proper, and we still can compete in these big events and give people something to watch while they're unfortunately not able to get out and play with the rest of us. But the Disc Golf Pro Tour made huge strides last year, and the PDGA has also been working very closely with the Disc Golf Pro Tour to align some of those strides, not simply just to try to keep up with them, but really just to maintain consistency from elite event to elite event. It's a pretty phenomenal thing that there are 2, not 1, but 2 professional pro tours out there nowadays. And as we start to see more and more athletes take this seriously, and it becomes their lifelong career, their goal, and their job, there are now 2 tours where they can go out and compete and reasonably make a sustainable financial profit and financial gain by playing professional disc golf. So yes, Disc Golf Pro Tour did make huge strides last year and really paved the way for all of us to realize how this is going to work moving forward as we navigate our way through this pandemic.
So I think a question that's on people's minds as we look ahead to 2022 and beyond is the national tour becoming obsolete in the face of the growth of the pro tour and the increasing needs of the PDGA to focus on all of the growth we've seen on the amateur side of the game, the recreational side of the game, and the majors that the PDGA operates at a high level. I don't know what you can tell us right now. Are there conversations ongoing right now about the potential for the national tour to, in some way merge with the pro tour or be operated by the pro tour? And how do you feel about where the national tour stands in the future?
It's a great question. And I want to back up just a little bit. I I don't want to use the word obsolete. I want to say complementary, that the National Tour is actually a bit complementary to the Disc Golf Pro Tour rather than becoming obsolete. As I said just a minute ago, we've been working very closely with Jeff Sprague and his team to make sure that, all of the processes involved, from the bids to the expectations of our hosts when we're on site, to the requirements, of the competitors when they're on site. We've done our best to align and work with the Disc Golf Pro Tour to make sure that there's consistency there, so that the competitors themselves and the folks running these events and the communities in which these events take place aren't really noticing much of a difference. So obsolete, I don't think is the word I would use. Complementary is certainly one that I think that we are striving for, so I hope that shines through. In regard to the future of the National Tour and the Disc Golf Pro Tour, sure, there have been discussions. We're not ready to discuss any specifics therein, but certainly the alignment of the two tours and the congruity of the two tours, the way that we work together in an effort to, achieve a geographic flow or movement throughout the year of both of those tours, really just kind of reemphasizes the alignment of the two tours and the partnership that we have with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So looking forward, we can only expect that partnership to strengthen. And in what ways, we still have yet to see. But certainly there are discussions with the Disc Golf Pro Tour regularly. In fact, I talk with Jeff just about every single day just to make sure that we're staying on the same page and on the same track.
I'll step in real quick and provide some historical aspect to some of this, because I've been around and have played from the beginning of the National Tour at the time when it was started in 2003, I believe, right, Michael? It was such a catalyst step forward from what was a loosely organized group of events around the country. In fact, at the A-tier level, they were often just referred to them as a super tour event, even though there was really no connection between them all. But the bigger, larger A tiers that got the word got out right, proof in the pudding, you have to be here for this event, kind of became known as the Super Tour. And then the National Tour actually was put together and organized by the PDGA, and it was a monstrous step forward. And so there was a National Tour committee at the time, basically made up of the tour directors, right? And it was more of a sketching working group of, hey, where do you want to be on the schedule? How's this going to work? And it didn't often work very well, because as a touring player doing it full time, Des and I decided pretty early, like, we're not going to participate because you guys are making us drive from one end of the country and then back again in the span of a couple weeks. And, just being, travel minded and the big costs that it takes to do some of these things, we're like, let's play in the events we want to do. And that's something that the tour has strived to get better and better at. And I think they're really starting to come around with that. But there was a National Tour committee, they were both called the same thing. This is actually decided that, we need to bring in some like movers and shakers and people outside of this tournament director group. And so in 2005, a National Tour committee that was made up of Ron Convers, longtime professional. At the time, he was our board liaison, so he was on the PDGA board of directors. Steve Dodge, who him and his partner Jason Southwick, came up with this incredible format and event out in the East in Massachusetts, the Marshall Street Disc Golf Championship. It was even a non-sanctioned event in its first couple of years, although it was as incredible as the best super tours that we had at the time. David Gentry, who was the PDGA Tour manager, and I think he was the first person hired in that position. Myself as a touring player, Dan Ginley, longtime Hall of Famer, stalwart tournament director for the Memorial. Chris Bellinger, tournament director for the Beaver State Fling, which rose to be one of the best tournaments in the land. David Feldberg, who also was a longtime touring veteran player. We got together and we'd have meetings, and what we did accomplish a lot of things. We got it to the point where we made tournaments apply to become a national tour, which at the time, it was kind of like, hey, do you think you can pull it off? Do you want to pull it off? Do you have the staff? Do you have these things? Meanwhile, on the tour player side, I had a Yahoo group with all the touring pros, and we were coming up with all these things. Yeah, Yahoo group. All these standards and things that we would need as professionals to like treat our bodies correctly and create a fair competition. And Steve Dodge had, this guy's a rocket scientist. He had a wealth of ideas that they wanted to kind of implement and press forward. And this National Tour Committee, we did a number of really good things, but we also really pressed the envelope. We got it to the point where some of the tour directors were kind of like, this sounds great in theory, but I don't know if we can quite pull this off yet. The resources weren't developed, even from the PDGA side of things. And, the finish of this story is actually really bizarre because I still don't have a pure answer. But in 2009, when they did a huge review of the PDGA National Tour, as they did every year, they came back to our committee and they actually, Brian Graham, the executive director at the time, sent out an email like, you guys have really done a fantastic job, but we're going to disband this committee. And we're going to move on with some things that the PDGA is, trying to implement. And, and I got to admit, at this time, Steve Dodge and I were, we had conversations like, can you believe this? This is bizarre. Were we too forward thinking? Were we pushing too much? And we really have to look at modern history, right? And I'm pretty sure Steve Dodge, kept a lot of these ideas in play. And thus we did have the Disc Golf Pro Tour kind of formulate, perhaps out of a lot of those conversations and ideas that we had back then. Is that good or bad, for what's happening right now? I don't think so, but I'm going to give Steve Dodge a monster, credit bump right here because he did put it out there. He might not have had the financial backing, again, just like what maybe back then, the PDGA didn't have the financial ability to support this. And boom, here we are now with some of the financial backing. The Pro Tour is kicking butt. The PDGA National Tour clicking on all cylinders. So I think it's healthy right now that we've got these two tours, but there's a lot of resources, kind of out there and things. So, maybe it is time to kind of really start, thinking like how do these tours mold together? What takes place instead of a national tour? Are there other things the PDGA then can really focus some of its power and resources to? And, if I were asked, I'd say, yes, there are plenty of cool ideas that the PDGA can rock out on.
What do you say to that, Mike?
I say he's absolutely right. There are plenty of ideas. And in fact, his wife is working on some of those ideas as we speak, as a matter of fact. Youth and education is absolutely a huge goal for us. And Des has been doing an amazing job putting product and actually merchandise in the hands of more and more players through her grant program. Amazing reach with that program itself. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We do want to continue to strengthen our majors. Obviously, we've seen throughout the last year a huge influx of tournament players, which means more tournament participation. And with the same-ish number of events with more participation, what are we going to do? So the PDGA right now is constantly going over ways that we can enhance the membership experience, not just the membership, but the tournament director experience, and make things a little bit easier on everybody. Kind of reduce the bottleneck in the registration systems and provide more opportunity for participation for our entire membership. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Jay. There's a ton that we're focusing on right now. And the National Tour is really just the tip of the iceberg, but the whole entire time it has been nice, and it's been, thrilling to work alongside with the Disc Golf Pro Tour, which I'm so glad you brought up Steve Dodge and how this really is kind of a product of his many years of sacrifice and effort. The Pro Tour was a vision of Steve's. I'll never forget that day when he came into the PDGA Summit. I think it was 2014, and he threw out the pitch to the board of directors for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. And just so much excitement was in the room. And you could tell that someone with that amount of passion really kind of had the tools and the chops to kick things off and get things started. So we wouldn't be where we are right now. The Disc Golf Pro Tour obviously wouldn't be where they are right now without Steve Dodge's efforts, and we're extremely thankful for that.
It's been interesting following the PDGA and Pro Tour's relationship over the last 5-6 years. There was some tension early on, and maybe some of that tension still lingers at times, but obviously with DGN coming on to do live coverage, And you're talking about how you talk with Jeff Spring on a regular basis, daily basis. Things are much better, perhaps, than they were in the early days. Does it feel like there's just more of a mutual trust at this point? Like, what from your side of things, like how has that relationship evolved since the early years when it was run by Dodge?
I think it's collaboration. Communication and collaboration have been the big things that have really kind of ramped up over the last couple of seasons. There was a complete admiration for what Steve was doing with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. There just sometimes were some breakdowns in communication. Some of our initiatives didn't align perfectly. That being said, I'm not taking anything away from what he did or built for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. But yeah, over the last couple of years, we've really kind of built a closer relationship, and our partnership with them has strengthened over the years in terms of PDGA support and that support being reciprocated both ways. So really just a desire for them to, adhere to our many requests and just making sure that they're following all competition standards, tour standards, and rules. And that was really the big thing. Once that alignment happened, we saw a clear opportunity for a partnership, and that's when bigger discussions started taking place about us working together and us becoming, developing the partnership that we now have. So it really came. It was kind of like a phoenix rising from the ashes when there was, like Jay said, there was kind of a breakdown in the way the National Tour and these big events were being presented to the membership. That's actually one of the things that really got me interested in working for the PDGA was, as Jay was saying, I was a player back in the late 2000s, out 2000s, and I noticed a lot of things that could be improved. And so when I jumped on board, that was one of my main goals, was to try to strengthen the tie between the PDGA and the players. And also at the same time give our tournament directors the support from the PDGA in a direct representation. And our tie-in with the Disc Golf Pro Tour is because they've been striving to do the very same things while aligning with our competition and tour standards and rules and regulations. So it's been a great partnership over the last, since Steve made that pitch in 2014, for about 7 years now. But really, we've seen big strides being made over the last couple of seasons.
I know you got to get off to the airport in just a minute, so we're going to let you go. But I one last question. The PDGA, in the middle of last year, right when the pandemic hit, there were layoffs, tons of uncertainty just in the industry in general about what was going to happen because of COVID-19. Then, events start coming back in June and over the summer. And then we see this massive explosion in the sport where you're seeing, 100% growth, maybe more. Huge influx of new members to the PDGA. What do you see as the priorities for the PDGA because of all this growth? I mean, how do you go from the success of 2020 from the disc golf side of things and make sure that you're able to sustain it and build into this year and beyond?
Membership benefits, which one of our biggest membership benefits, obviously, as we all know, is competing in tournaments. And what we've seen in the last 3 and 4 months is a lot of folks not being able to register for those tournaments because there is such a huge increase in demand. So what we are focused on right now is increasing our supply with a huge focus on quality. We don't just want to see more events, we want to see more quality events. And we don't just want to see new members become tournament directors without the tools that they need to run a tournament properly. And so one of the things that we're focusing on right now are educational tools, training tools for our tournament directors, so that we can better provide that member benefit that is so critical to our players and to our members. Also, as we just talked about, youth and education initiatives. We've definitely got a few things planned to further support our underserved demographics. And that I mean our female demographic, our junior demographic. Our senior committee is actually working on the beginning steps of the senior tour right now to make sure that there's more opportunity for our aging members. So as you were saying, there are a lot of things that are keeping our attention right now, and it's not just the pro side of disc golf, but we're really looking for a way to continue to bolster and support the grassroots side of the sport, specifically through educational initiatives and education and training tools.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thanks so much. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I was just saying, not to put you on the spot, Michael, but a great spot to say, like, what are our current kind of statistics? Where the growth trend didn't stop in 2020, from what I'm hearing.
No, it absolutely didn't. It kept going, actually. it went exponential, as a matter of fact. I don't have it in front of me right now, but the increase of new members has been phenomenal. We closed out the end of last year with an active current membership base over 70,000 players, which is,
wow.
about 15 to 17,000 more than what we had seen in the past. And we're looking at, in the future, perhaps even this year, if things keep trending in the same direction, we're looking at an active membership base over 100,000 players. I'm PDGA number 13898. And I thought it was the coolest thing when we awarded PDGA number 100,013,898. And now we're looking at almost 200,000 members within the organization, and we're creeping closer to it every day. It's just phenomenal. So to see this growth, and I don't want to do it the injustice of giving inaccurate specifics or inaccurate numbers, but our growth has been phenomenal. And you can keep up with all that in our monthly reports after board of directors meetings. We always make sure we keep the current numbers and demographic numbers there.
I look forward to giving you a fist bump in person.
Likewise to both of you. And thank you both again for having me. Jay, so glad that you latched on to one of our favorite bands the way that I did. And I absolutely love this Texas music with the Texas swing thing that you guys are doing. Keep it up. And hopefully a lot more people will get exposed to Khruangbin and Brownout and many of the other outstanding musicians that are coming out of the big state of Texas. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Mike Downs, Director of Ops for the PDGA. Good luck this weekend at Texas States.
Thanks very much. We'll see you out there.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. The Upshot is presented in part by DiscGolfAmerica.com, a clean and easy-to-use retail shop online. You've got a 5% rewards program, a picture, and a weight for every single disc. And look, the shipping prices can't be beat. $3.95 flat rate, and orders over $39, shipping is free. All that, plus you get 10% off if you use code UPSHOT. So check out DiscGolfAmerica.com, use code UPSHOT, and get yourself some new discs for a great price. Welcome back to the Upshot. Thanks again to Mike Downs for taking a few minutes with us. And Jay, you've seen the national tour. You've played on the national tour. You've seen it since its inception in 2003. How has the national tour changed over the last almost now 20 years?
I think I alluded to it a little bit in the interview. For me, a lot of it's flow. I think even though there's some obviously parts of the country that in regions that cannot have tournaments in certain parts of the year, right? We're not going to run a spring tournament in Oregon or in upstate New York, during the springtime. But somewhere like Arizona, we can kick off pretty early in the year. So that was part of some of the discussions going on. We know the players really wanted something that was flowing and could allow for some travel, even if it meant it wasn't a week to week kind of a thing, because we knew that there would be events that would be just stumbling over themselves to try to wow, if I have a stop in between, I'm going to get some players that take the week off. I'm going to get some players that stop and play in my hometown. So That to me is one of the bigger things, right? We're still working out stuff though. I mean, the player standards was another thing that I alluded to. And that is something that's still ongoing today. I'm hearing the top players of today talk about some of the same things that we were talking about back then. And, and I get it. I mean, I'm one of those guys that put my money where my mouth is. I'm the chair of the competition committee right now. I've been a member of the competition committee for a long time. And, one of those tough nuggets is, you can make all the standards in the world, but until there's some teeth to enforce them,
Sure.
people cannot do it or say they didn't do it or make a mistake, and there's really no repercussions.
Well, we're going to talk more about the kind of the future of the national tour, potential merger with the pro tour, and what's going on in the PDGA competition side of things in our subscriber bonus. So make sure you join us for that. It's less than $4 a month to subscribe, get access to all of those episodes, my Cashline business newsletter, exclusive articles on the website, Discord access, and a whole bunch more. So check it out at discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. So Texas State's coming up, Dogwood Gold at Lindsay Park in Tyler, Texas, as the Texas Swing rolls on. I know you talked briefly about this course when we were talking with Mike about a woods course in Texas. What's required to play well at this Dogwood Gold course?
Yeah, I've got a long history with Tyler in the Piney Woods, much like having been a Waco Charity Classic Open winner. I've also was the inaugural Piney Woods, which is kind of a considerable style of event here in Tyler, Texas, and won that Open victory back in 2009. And I was talking about how the Dogwood was kind of groundbreaking at the time. Players are going to come in from other parts of the, other regions, and they're going to feel like they're home. The Piney Woods is a region of Texas that literally is lodgepole pines, thick briars, beautiful, pine needle forests. So it has all of those elements. So what a player is going to need there is a power control game. There are some beautiful par fours out at Dogwood, and the players that are going to score well are going to be the ones that are able to throw the two different ways, right? The players with big power are going to be able to disc down and throw and shape some of these medium speed, mid-range, and fairway flyers and negotiate that way. And some of the other players that want a risk-reward option are going to be able to throw high-speed drivers on angles, flip and fly, flex, and those are the ones that are going to make the shots that people are going to be talking about on some holes like, hole 8 out there, just a super par 4. It's very birdieable for the, for the mid-level pro that throws a fairway driver off the tee, a fairway driver, or a mid-range second shot, and they end up on the green. It can be eagled, and it's happened before. Even last year, Emerson Keith, taking some risk reward option because he knows the hole, flip up, high speed driver, flexes through the woods, gets over the ditch on the green, eagle opportunity that just would make any crowd just explode. So it has those options, and I know they're not offering spectators, so it's a great time for everybody to tune in and watch. It's one of those courses where it's definitely scoreable, and it's definitely one that can leave you bruised and battered if you're not on point off of the tee.
You mentioned tuning in to watch. I mean, this is the point where I wonder if there's diminishing returns to coverage, because we're going to have 3 cards of MPO and 2 cards of FPO covered on post-production, next day, and live coverage. I mean, there is going to be no shortage of being able to follow what's happening at this tournament. But I honestly wonder, are we reaching the upper limit? Like, how much coverage is the right amount of coverage? Don't get me wrong. I'm not really criticizing here. I'm just wondering if, the third card, are people going to tune in and watch that? I mean, I guess we'll have to see. You always have the chance that somebody gets red hot and has a crazy round to come from the third card up to the lead card or something like that. But this is just like everybody's there, and it's kind of cool. It's like you don't see that this much because the Pro Tour is a little bit more in some ways protective of their events and like who can be there, and the PDGA is like, everybody get in here. So that it's kind of cool. But I wonder if you can watch all the coverage, that's awesome. I don't think I have the time in the day.
No, you're right, Charlie. You do bring up a pretty, it's a very poignant point. I'm going to give credit and laud the PDGA for investing in this type of coverage at this point in our sport. We've got several media companies that have been, they've been eating cheese sandwiches for a few years and trying to just make the dream happen, right? They've made the dream happen. Joe Mez has shown the path that you can monetize this, but it's going to be other ways, right? Around people supporting the company. So what I'm attributing it to is almost tryouts. It's like, let's let these guys are all here at the moment. Let's let them see their product. And I think eventually the cream will rise to the top as far as, production goes. And, there might be other tournaments in other places to where some of the other ones that maybe don't cut the Pro Tour, National Tour muster. There's going to be some other places, as it becomes more accessible, people want to showcase their course. They've got funding coming in from the local municipalities, right? So that's kind of how I see it. Yeah, I mean, anybody, again, power to you if you're watching and absorbing all that. One other thing I'll touch on is that, what I want to see continue to happen, and this is where I can give a critical point to the Pro Tour. You guys are doing a great job of developing some personalities and letting some people kind of flow, but dig deeper. There wasn't too long ago where people were kind of like, all right, I'm tired of seeing the same four people on the same, especially the first round. Let's let some other people shine. I'm not saying just because they're out there. I'm saying because you have to be good to be out there. So these other players, let's let some personalities develop. And then you also see some people that are tuning in, right? That first round, it's like Maria Olivia out of Dallas-Fort Worth. She's been an up-and-coming female pro open player for a number of years. And I can pretty much promise you that the Dallas-Fort Worth area is going to be tuned in to see how their local homegirl is going to fare on the coverage, this first go. So those are some good things.
Yeah, I mean, the Pro Tour live coverage is definitely a little bit more diverse than usual for this event. I mean, your men's MPO feature card is Mason Ford, Emerson Keith, Eagle McMahon, and Greg Barsby. Obviously, Eagle is a stalwart up on these lead cards, but otherwise, you don't see those guys on the live coverage all that often. Women's feature card: Haley King, Stephanie Vincent, Maria Oliva, and Rebecca Cox. So I think a similar story there, not seeing Paige Pierce and Katrina Allen up on that FPO feature card. So I think a nice chance to highlight some different folks. And I totally agree with you. I think that feature card first round is a great chance to try to highlight some of those stories. Somebody with a local connection, somebody who is, new to tour. And I think it's cool to see some different folks, even if the ratings, they're probably not going to be as good, but that's what the final round is for, right?
Yeah, no, I'll give big props to whoever kind of put that together. I really do think the first round is, the cream will rise to the top. You will get to see most likely your favorite top guy or gal, and yeah, it's great. We're going to see Des Redding on some post-production coverage. This is her first. This is her first huge event since, the World Championship in Vermont, where, unfortunately her hip finally said, look, woman, it's time for you to take care of this. And she did. And she's got a brand new hip. So she's been working extremely hard. I'm so proud of her. She'll be on Central Coast on that post-production. And, that's awesome. Another great storyline for a Texas and disc golf legend.
Absolutely. It's going to be, Des will be alongside Katrina Allen, Kona Panis, and Valerie Mandujano. So some stiff competition for Des on that opening day.
I think all you'll see is smiles because, to know what she's been through and to feel that she is healthy, pain-free, and able to enjoy the love of the flying disc through the air. There'll be no worries for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you can go check out all of the options for coverage. We've got a story up on the Ulti World Disc Golf site, how to watch, how to follow everything along. PDGA obviously has that up as well. And so I think it's now time for us to make our picks for the first National Tour event since, I guess, probably October of 2019.
Wow.
So wow is right. We are now into the end of March here in 2021, and we're gonna go 5 deep today. Are you ready to go 5 deep instead of 3?
Yeah, I can go 5 deep. Sure.
All right, great.
It actually makes it tougher.
In a way, I agree with that. So I'll give you the honors if you want to take it away. You can just pick your division and give us your top 5.
Wow. All right. Well, let's start with MPO. You know, I'm gonna go with my 5th spot. Somebody that's gonna be consistently up there in the top 5 in every single event this year until he starts winning a few, and this could snowball into a major championship this year for Calvin Heimberg. It doesn't matter what style of course, the guy's got game. And I think he has now had a couple weeks to kind of get his road legs under him. He's been very comfortable having off season in Florida, and other places outside of Florida. Well, they aren't Florida. So I think Calvin's kind of getting his road legs under him, and I look forward to him doing good. In 4th place, I've got a woodsman, somebody coming out of the Carolinas that like this is their style of course. They've been playing well lately. Nathan Queen. Yeah, I think he's going to have
past weekend.
Look good, and I think this is his style of course. And then somebody we haven't talked about in a little bit, but all the potential, all the athleticness in the world. I think Kevin Jones is finally going to have it all come together for him, and he's going to make a podium spot this weekend. I think he's been close. Just has to put it all together. He's my risky pick, honestly, of the whole top 5 because. You'll see 2 players I'll talk about that aren't in there. At number 2, Paul Macbeth is fighting for the win yet again. I kind of have him coming up short this week because I've got a super surprise pick for number 1, but I'm going to go Paul Macbeth number 2. No surprise to anybody. Number 1, another kind of Tennessee, North Carolina Woods player, Chris Robot Chicken Dickerson is feeling good as well, being on tour for the first time. I think his support system has now grounded him to a chance for a victory.
This is the kind of course where I could definitely see Chris Dickerson playing very well. And he's been a little, I feel like, weirdly under the radar to start the season. And we'll see what happens this weekend. I do not have Chris Dickerson in my top 5, but I do really like the pick. What I'll be interested to talk about, let me go through my top 5 and then we can discuss a couple of the names. Number 5, I have Paul Ulibarri, who has played really well. He was looking real sharp at Belton and then didn't quite play well enough in the particularly the final round to get up into that that top mix. But it looked there for a minute like he was going to be in contention to win the tournament. And he's just been playing really well all season. Like he hasn't been in a position to win a tournament yet, really, except maybe the Memorial, but has been up in that top 10 range. And I think this is a great chance for him to, on a course where maybe like having max power is not necessary in order to play well, a good chance for him to do well. Calvin
great
Heimberg
call.
For me at
Putter on fire.
Right. Calvin Heimberg for me at number 4. He's almost an auto include right now in the top 5 for the same reasons that you mentioned. I mean, he's been that good. Even when he's off, he still finishes in the top 3. Number 3, I have Paul Macbeth, Mr. Consistency. I mean, that's simple. Number 2, maybe my surprise pick, Bradley Williams. So Bradley Williams played really well at Waco, is at home in Texas. He doesn't go on tour, but that doesn't mean that he's not one of the best players in the country. I mean, when we see him show up and play alongside the other top players, I mean, you just see just the most smooth disc golf game that you can imagine. And it's cool to see Bradley Williams look like he's having fun. He's got his Twitter account now, and he's kind of mixing it up on social media. And this is coming off of like a few years ago when he got, basically banned from playing disc golf for like 12 months because of some anger outbursts. And that has just not been what has defined his game at all lately. Very cool to see. And I think he's going to have a real chance to win this event. For me at number 1, though, I'm going to stick with a hot hand, and I'm going to take Ricky Wysocki. Earlier I was, 2 weeks ago at Waco, I picked Eagle to win. Eagle's dealing with a little bit of an upper back injury potentially. And I don't think, to me, has just not proven that he can consistently play well in the woods. So I don't even have him in my top 5 this weekend. However, Ricky Wysocki, something about the Texas air or the water or the something gets him playing his best disc golf. Obviously, we saw him play very well this weekend. I also just think like his confidence is really high right now. Putting looks great. Drives look great. He's just all around, like, steps up to his shots and looks like he's ready to throw. So I'm going to take him to go back to back and get his first Elite Series win of the year. So I guess I have to ask you, why no Ricky in your top 5?
Yeah, no, I mean, that was a really risky move on my part. I'm just, he's a teammate, so I hope he uses it as a motivation of like, all right, Yeti, I'll show you. But I'm going to say that there's a Texas hangover right there. The style of play that was last week that Ricky really pumped himself up on and performed really well. I think, and the big win and the big battle against Paul, that's so mentally draining. I'm just going to give him a pause button right here.
I think that's fair. That's totally fair. All right, let's pop over to FPO. I'll go first here. In the 5th spot, I have Own Scoggins. Maybe I should have higher, honestly. She's been playing so well, and I think this is a course where her style of game is going to be very well suited. One of the best putters on tour, shot shaping extraordinaire. So I've got her in my top 5. Katrina Allen for me at number 4. Katrina's playing really well right now, so continuing to expect her to be up in the top 5. Valerie Mandujano, who started off playing quite well at Belton, a tournament that she'd won a year ago, ended up dropping back a bit, but I think this is a chance for her to kind of get back into that podium range. Valerie Mandujano is one of my picks for just like kind of breakout player of the year. I think that she has a really high ceiling, and we're going to have to see how she handles the rigors of the week in and week out rhythm of playing disc golf on tour, because that's new for her. And so, we'll see. But I would expect at times for there to be a little bit of fatigue. But I do think that she's going to be well suited to playing well here in her home state. Paige Pierce for me at number 2. I'm not taking Paige Pierce to win this tournament. I think that, this is just not necessarily the kind of course where I think Paige Pierce has a big advantage over other players on tour. It comes down to that. If we were talking about this last week, Yeti, if we're looking at her at Belton, which she didn't play, she's going to be the favorite because there's just so much big open distance, big hyzer opportunities. And that's not going to be the case this weekend at Texas State. So I still think she's going to play really well because she's Paige Pierce and is almost rated 1,000. But I have her at number 2. At number 1, give me Sarah Hokum. I think it's time for Sarah Hokum to get back on top of an Elite Series event. This is exactly the kind of course that suits her style. And, she's coming off a win in Florida this past weekend and looked quite good at Waco, another course where you kind of have a lot of demanding woods shots. And so I've got Sarah Hokum to get her first Elite Series win of the year this weekend at Texas State's.
Nice. Yeah, those are great picks for sure. This, if you really think about the Elite Series that we've seen at this point, and we'll just throw Memorial in there just because that has been traditionally, right? So all of those courses, open, Waco a mix, Belton open with a little bit of technical in there, and now we're going into the woods. So we could see a shakeup there. That could be just what Sarah Hokum needs. So I like your I like your aggressive pick there. In fact, I have her as well up in the podium this week. But we'll start with, and I had to throw a dark horse out there, and Bradley Williams was my dark horse on the MPO side. So
Sure.
So you're on track there, yeah. And of course, my dark horse on the women's side. I mean, duh. 3-time women's world champion. I hope she surprises some people and say, it might not be a hey, she's back moment. I mean, she's almost looking at a grandmaster age here. So number 5 though for me is going to be a local Texan that I've talked about last week that I think his game has been kind of coming together as the season develops, and that's Lisa Fakis. I think she's going to play this whole Texas swing right in that top 5, and she might even have a breakthrough tournament to set her up here. But I think she's going to be right in there in the top 5 for sure. And then I've got Heather Young at number 4. I think she's going to build off of this. And I think if she can stay clean, I think her putter, which you alluded to earlier about Belton, I think it's going to stay red hot, and I think it's going to keep her in the mix. So Heather Young at the 4 spot. Number 3, I went with the sidearm specialist of Sarah Hokum. She has just been working every week on her game. She did take a break from the Texas swing and ran all the way down to Florida, but she did take home a victory there. So she's coming in with the confidence booster. And I think, if her travel plans went correct, then, she's going to be in position here in Tyler. In my number 2 spot, I've got Paige Pierce. Again, we got Mr. Consistency. We've got Mrs. Consistency. She's going to be in the thick of things. I still think there's a lot of stuff going on. She's back in Texas with so many people, opportunities, all these things. Until her head kind of clears out, I think she's going to be battling because she's that good. And so then that leaves my number 1 spot. I'm going back to back with Katrina Allen. So, even though Kat's performance maybe last week wasn't like upper echelon, like one we're going to talk about her for years about, but I think she's been laying down the bricks since maybe the Pro Tour finale last year, where some putting woes came in and showed their head again, right? She'd had a couple years now of like maybe missing some putts that we normally might, like these are automatic. And she had some shaky ones still, but I think that the bricks are kind of coming back together as far as building that putting foundation again. So she's got all the other skills off the tee, and I think she's going to take that momentum and perhaps put together a back-to-back.
I like it. I mean, I agree 100%. The putter looks a lot better. She looks a lot more confident. And still maybe not the strongest part of her game, and probably never will be, but she doesn't need to be amazing. She just needs to be solid, and she's been solid all season. And I think, really like a lot of the issues maybe this past weekend came from not her putter. It was from, a slightly misplayed upshot or something like that. So I think Katrina Allen is always an excellent pick to win anything right now, and has been able to do what she needs to do. Hit back-to-back C1X putts to close out the round at Belton and win. So I like the pick. So there you go. Your picks for the Texas State Disc Golf Championships. Again, the coverage begins on Friday with live coverage on the Disc Golf Network. It will be, I'm almost positive, Ian Anderson, Nate Doss, and Val Jenkins Doss in the booth for DGN. And then, of course, lots of post-produced coverage coming out on YouTube starting on, maybe late Friday night, Saturday morning as the tournament rolls along. So, Jay, you're playing this weekend, right? What division are you going to be in?
Well, I'm mixing it up with the kids again. I had a great time in Waco, and I was just a few breaks away from putting myself right back up in there. And this is, of course, I have some history and familiarity with. Last year at the Texas State Championship. I made my debut into the 50-year-old Grandmaster group. It was my 50th debut, my potential for my 100th single PDGA win, Destinai's 25th anniversary on the 25th year of the Texas State Championship.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. I put a lot of pressure on myself is what I did. But I played 2 rounds at Dogwood and 1 out in Lindsay. And my 2 rounds in Dogwood, if you were to match that up where the Open were, my last round was, man, if I pull that round off 3 times, I made an incorrect pick in my top 5.
You should pick yourself. I would love that. Awesome. All right. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to join us for our subscriber bonus segment where we talk Pro Tour, National Tour, future of those tours, and kind of where things are heading in the elite side of the sport, and some PDGA competition stuff as well. So thanks very much for tuning in. For Jay Yeti Redding, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.